Hi, I'm Teresa Duncan.
And I'm Kevin Henry.
Welcome to Chew on This.
We are excited to bring you our views of current topics in the dental industry and put a little different spin on them, giving you something to chew on.
If you need to jump off, be sure to check the show notes for links as well as how to get in touch with us.
And now, let's give you something to chew on.
Welcome back to another edition of Chew on This. K-Dog, what's up?
Teresa Duncan, I'm excited to hang out with you as always. It's going to be a good day.
It is. And so, you know what I was just thinking? We should probably peel back the curtain a little bit because I know many of our people listen to us on audio. And at the ADOM meeting, I heard a lot of people telling me that they like the Chew on This videos and audio. So I'm happy about that. But if you're an audio listener, you should know that before we hit record and as it's winding down, it does the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kevin and I do our little head thing. Like we just kind of, have you noticed that, Kevin? It's kind of turned into a thing where we do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And we do this bobblehead thing, and I just thought, you know what, maybe we should show people that this is what we do before the meeting. And and so if you're on audio, just know we look a little bit ridiculous, but
that's what we do.
You know, if you know us, you're not surprised by this at all.
Exactly.
So, right. All right, K-Dog, what is the news of the day?
Let's pull back the curtain as well, because you and I don't know what each other's news stories are today. So this is complete surprise, and I love it. So we're going to stay in the U.S., at least for my part, okay?
Okay.
We're going to go to the great state, the land of Lincoln, Illinois.
Oh,
Let's go.
Goodness. Wow.
You ready to go with me?
Okay. Yeah. Very, very inspiring here. Let's get in the Corvette that we have.
See, you remember from last time. Absolutely. So, I'm going to give a shout out to the state of Illinois here. And again, you can see this because we're going to link it in the show notes, but the state of Illinois, not the Illinois Dental Association, not the American Dental Association, but the, let me make sure I get this right, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation has launched a campaign about fake dentists and real risks.
Wow.
So they are putting out to the residents of Illinois how that they can spot a fake dentist. And in their crosshairs, my friend, are those veneer techs that we have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the veneer techs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep. Yep. I mean, honestly, like you really should run. First of all, my big thing is if somebody is going to invite me to their dental office and really what they do is just pop a trunk, I'm a little concerned.
You should be. As well, you should be. Yeah, so they are going after the veneer experts. They are going after the veneer techs. And I love this quote, of course, in conjunction with the Illinois State Dental Society. There is no procedure that is safe when done by someone who does not have proper training in oral health. And absolutely agree with that. And of course, they go through a lady who was arrested as a veneer tech in Chicago after being booted out of Las Vegas. We covered that, I believe, on the podcast, as well as drbycuspid.com. But they say that really that and so many other things that they've heard about people doing things on social media saying, come get your veneers here for cheap. If you're in pain, knock on the back door 3 times and we'll let you in and it won't cost you as much. All these different things has caused them to do the fake dentist real risk campaign. And kudos to the state of Illinois for reaching out and saying, this is a problem. We got to take care of it.
Wow. So this is not something that you think was initiated by an actual dentist organization. They must have received a heck of a lot of complaints if that's the case.
That's what I'm thinking. And that was the thing that stood out to me and I'm going to be real honest here, and you could disagree with me. I think if the Illinois State Dental Association had come out with this, everybody go, well, of course, you're a dental association. You're going to say that.
For sure.
But I think for the state to come out and say this is a problem, I think it really raises up the alarm a little bit more and makes it a little more serious in the eyes of the great citizens of that state, shall we say.
So what about, because we always want to make this semi-educational, Kevin, because that's our goal as educators. What happens if you get somebody into your office that has been to one of these people? I mean, you're looking at, first of all, it's not going to be cheap to fix something that a veneer tech does.
Right.
Because they probably have taken away so much tooth structure that it's going to be hard to put more veneers. If you're probably looking at full crowns if there's no issues, right? Like that's a lot. So as an office, it's going to be very tempting to say, well, you shouldn't have done that. And it's, like a no, no, no. Yeah.
Right.
And shaking your finger at them. But I think we have to come from a place of compassion. But here's what stinks, like, to save a little bit of money, it's going to cost a lot of money to
Oh,
fix it.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's funny because I was thinking about the teaching moment as well. And my thought was being proactive with it. And if I'm a dentist in the state of Illinois, I'm absolutely reminding my patients whenever they say, gosh, that costs too much, or, you start to get that money pushback. I
Hmm.
absolutely am mentioning this campaign, or I've
Yeah.
got something up in the office to alert people because there's a QR code that you can scan to get more information and all this stuff. But I think we wonder in the dental practice how many times that people walk out of there going, they're going to charge me $500. I wonder if I could get it cheaper somewhere. And then all of a sudden they start hitting Dr. Google to see.
Yeah. Well, and there's also the people that never even end up in our offices. Like, they just see some sort of trend on social media. I mean, I hate to say it, but TikTok has not been friendly to the dental field. I mean, it's spread a lot of craziness when it comes to dentistry. So maybe, okay, so here's another scenario. They don't even go normally to the dental office. I mean, there's whole parts of populations that don't go to the dental office on a regular basis. And what if you have no idea that this is something that you're not supposed to get? I mean, that's the unfortunate pieces. Those are the ones that get taken advantage of. I mean, they don't know it's not normal to be doing this in the back of somebody's house or in their
Sure.
basement.
And a lot of people will only look at price. They're not going to look at anything else, even if it's shady, even if their spidey senses go off, they're still going to go, yeah, but it's cheap. And
Hmm.
that's where I think that we in the dental industry, from the Dental Trade Alliance all the way down, have to be saying, here's why dentistry is actually a good investment. And going cheap at the start, as you said a few minutes ago, can lead to so much more expense down the road whenever sometimes there's nothing you can do about what's already been done.
That's true. Well, and I'm thinking it's a public campaign that they announced, right? So there's
Yep.
probably some money being spent, and that's going to be tax dollars since it's a public campaign.
Yep.
But, I got to sort of lament a little bit, Kevin, because I wish there were more campaigns done to just educate about oral health in general. And it's expensive to do that. I mean, using tax dollars, I'm not a fan of using tax dollars for anything, you know me. But at the same time, sometimes we do need to do that
We do.
sort of outreach. And when was the last time we did a huge national campaign about anything really dentistry wise?
Yeah. I remember, and this was, we date everything in our society now before the pandemic or after. But before the pandemic, I know the Dental Trade Alliance worked with the American Dental Association and the media partners to place the whole importance of brushing twice a day and to
Hmm.
make sure that that word really got out there. How much of an impact it had, I don't really know. And because we haven't heard much about it lately either. So I don't know what's being done to educate the society about just the general things that they need to be doing to make sure they don't end up in the dental practice more than they need to.
Well, there was a time when that type of advertising, I mean, everybody listened on TV more. So that was when you and I grew up with TV. We didn't have, YouTube and all the other stuff
Sure.
that is very distracting to network TV. I mean, I find myself watching less and less network TV as I age as well. But way back in the day, we would see ads, and I don't remember if it was ADA ads or if it was like Colgate or Crest ads, but they would have ads on brush twice a day, use a firm toothbrush. And I remember the firm toothbrush because our whole family used firm toothbrush. And then you find out later on that the firm toothbrush is the worst thing you can use. And now you have all sorts of recession. So now you should be using a soft toothbrush. And I'm sitting
Right.
here going, thanks, because now I have recession, but thanks a lot. So those campaigns did work. And then, of course, fluoride, fluoride in your toothpaste. And the whole 2 times a year thing comes from an ad. I don't think that was anything like based in science, was it? I think that came from a toothbrush ad or a toothpaste ad. See your dentist twice a year.
Right. And I learned earlier today, and I'm not sure if you knew this, about the brushing twice a day. Do you know where that originated from?
No.
So today, as we record this, is National POW/MIA Recognition Day. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so my mom is big into the POW/MIA movement. Long story there.
We
But,
should explain it's prisoners of
oh,
war,
yes, we should
missing in
say missing in
action.
action.
Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. So, and with my dad serving in Vietnam, so many people serving in Vietnam, there were a lot of questions about soldiers that were left behind.
Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
as I was doing the research for this, I came across an article that was published by the military on military.org, and we can link to that as well.
Okay.
But it talked about how in World War II, the Army made sure that their soldiers actually brushed twice a day to make sure that they didn't get toothaches or anything on the battlefield that would keep them from fighting.
For sure.
And they came home from the war brushing twice a day, and everybody's going, wait, what's this? And all of a sudden it
Nice.
became a very active thing that we brush twice a day. And I thought, that's very interesting.
I did not know that, K-Dog.
Yeah, see, how
Wow.
about that?
Check
So
that out.
it's
And
an
that
investigative
is
journalist.
fantastic.
See, that's what I do.
I mean, you do have the degree,
I
right?
dig,
So,
baby. I dig.
yeah. So,
So,
and honestly, if I were a soldier and I had tooth pain, I would lay down. I would lay down in the trench. I remember one
good.
time I had tooth pain and that was it. I could not focus on anything other than what was going on in my cheek. It was awful.
And I guess
Awful.
that's the whole point right there. If you're on the battlefield and you're focused on this instead of that, yeah, that's a problem.
I would have been like, okay, I think it's done. It's time. Like, so, I mean, seriously, like, I don't know if you've ever had tooth pain that
Oh yeah.
way. Like,
Oh,
well,
it's
and then you think about in our last episode, like being an astronaut going up, and what if your tooth explodes, right? The
a
tooth
whole,
explosions.
a
Oh
whole
my
different
God.
story. Trust me.
Wow.
So,
So,
yeah.
and if you're like tooth explosions, what are they talking about? It's a thing. You got to go back an episode or
Listen,
two. So,
just saying. So
periodontalgia. I
you,
remember these
you will
terms.
never forget that.
I will
Like the
never
firm
forget that.
toothbrush, you're never going to forget that. I'm telling
Yep, it's when your tooth is reacting to the change in barometric pressure. And if you're on a plane and I hear a little pop, something happened in your mouth, and I'm going to go, little barodontology there,
you.
right?
Does
So,
anybody know what happened here? Teresa's going to shoot up her hand. I do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude's tooth exploded. Sorry, bud.
That'd be fantastic. Then she just sits back down and keeps reading. You
Yep,
know.
I know. I know what happened. Teacher's pet. I know what happened. So, but that's fantastic that that came from a practical war. I mean, from war. It makes a lot of sense. I did not know that.
Yeah, so we'll
Ah,
link to that. I'll send it to you so that you can read that as well. But yeah, that was something that you maybe even your dad will find interesting. Who knows? So
yeah, I will tell him because he's also a Vietnam veteran and
absolutely.
has familiarity with people that have been in that situation. But the other piece on this, though, we remember these campaigns, Kevin. We were children or young adults when these campaigns happened. The impact it's had on us. Why don't we have more public health campaigns like this, oral health campaigns like
I,
this?
I
You
will
know?
tell you, in my personal opinion, the world started going to heck, shall we say, whenever Schoolhouse Rock went off the air.
Oh
Because
yes,
because how many things do I remember from Schoolhouse Rock
yeah.
that this generation will never? Yeah, conjunction junction. I mean, I get all this
What's
stuff.
your
See,
function?
those
Yep.
words, and,
Yeah.
absolutely,
I'm just a bill.
See?
Do you remember that? I'm
Oh,
just a
absolutely.
bill.
You know, there's one about the aortas and the ventricles, and I was going along. I get this. Yeah, circulation.
Yes, circulation.
You know?
Yes. Yeah, so I agree with you. The whole fall of Western civilization can be tied to Schoolhouse Rock not being widespread anymore.
But
Yeah, that's true.
like we were, and as you said, it was a different time. TV. If you missed your cartoon at 9 o'clock in the morning, you didn't see it again until next week. There was no on
Mm-mm.
demand, no nothing. And so we
No.
were plopped down there. And so they got us with Schoolhouse Rock. I don't know if the
Yeah.
same generation would be able to do that with all the on demand and everything else. That's the problem.
It's kind of sad though. I mean, it is
Yeah,
kind of sad though. Like I do remember like making sure I sat down with my cereal
heck yeah.
and and that was like don't bother her. Meanwhile, it wasn't don't bother her. It was like, "Oh good, she's going to be occupied for like an hour or two." Meanwhile, my parents are like, "Thank God we can sleep." Maybe that hasn't changed very much, but good memories there.
There
But
you go.
but look at the power of marketing even at our young ages. So I
Sure.
can't even imagine what kids nowadays are getting inundated with and it may not be brush your teeth twice a day. It may be, stick that butt out and twerk a little bit and get some loving. Like that's not the message I want being sent out.
That's opposite ends of the spectrum right there that you just threw out there. Holy
Right? I
cheese
mean, can
crackers. Yeah.
ADA pick up the, twerk and brush? How about that? Twerk and brush.
I know you're going to SmileCon. I can't wait to hear you go before the House of Delegates and say, "I got an idea. Here it is."
Twerk and brush. Netflix and chill and rinse. Rinse first. Netflix chill and rinse, right? Uh,
fantastic.
There's got to be all sorts of other things. Burger King, have it your way, but make sure that you brush afterwards. Like we just got to do a sort of these amendings of these
I like the
things.
tweaks in here. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody
Absolutely.
else does, but that's beside the
That's
point.
all
So,
right.
all right. So, kudos to Illinois,
There
and
you go.
kudos to you for being patriotic and staying in the states. I actually left. I left
Well,
the
that's all
states.
right. I'll go
Yep,
on
and
passport with you. Here we go.
we went up north. So I
Oh,
went up north. So I'm going to take you up north here, and we're going to visit some hygienists who are up
oh,
north. And so apparently, up there, hygienists are ditching being in the office and going to mobile dentistry. So
ah,
they are now looking to be on mobile dental clinics. They're opening their mobile dental clinics. And the one thing that was brought to my attention here, because I always am like, okay, this is great, but are they making money?
mhm.
And I understand dental insurance, dental reimbursement is very different up there. They don't have the model we have. But drew my eye was that there was a huge increase in the application of billing IDs for just hygienists, basically. So the Canadian Dental Hygienists Association, Donna Wells is the manager and she is the representative there. And she said basically the CDHA represents about 31,000 dental hygienists and has about 1,700 active billing UIN. It's their basically like a tax ID up there, billing numbers to charge insurance companies. And she has seen a 48% increase in the number of independent practices being opened in the last 5 years. Now, she doesn't know how many are mobile dental hygienists, but it is something that has come up. And here is the main thing that comes up about it. This is the headline. This is what drew my attention. Seeking respectful environment. Why more hygienists are opting for independent mobile
Oh,
practices.
interesting.
Now, okay, so this is interesting because the hygienists, and I can't imagine the hygienists in the US are made very differently than the hygienists in
I
Canada.
would bet.
But let's just see if we can work this through. But when I hear of a hygienist wanting to leave private practice in the States, it's typically because ergonomically their body is screwed.
Yep.
They want to stay home with the family and they luckily have a career that lets them work part time and still make pretty decent income. I don't know if I've ever heard respectful environment be a part of that unless you just put it together with the pace or, something like that. But have you heard respectful? Is that something? I don't know. Maybe with your take on dental assistants and their
I
attitudes, maybe it's different.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was just getting ready to say I think the respect thing is much more an assistant thing because so many of them don't feel like that they are given the respect they deserve for the role that they play in the practice. And there's also that view of, well, assistants don't always go to school, much like
Mm,
hygienists and dentists do. So, do they deserve the respect? I've heard that side of the equation as well. But whenever I think of a respectful environment, I think of, is there some kind of harassment going on? Is there something
yeah.
going on that you don't feel comfortable in that practice?
But it
And
can't be across the whole industry. Like, isn't that weird? So let me read you a quote
yeah,
here. So, in addition to the freedom and excitement of mobile practices, other factors of case are driving the trend. There's retirement. That's a major reason. And our workforce, we need to really do something about that because the amount of people retiring and a little bit across all jobs is going to be pretty hard to deal with soon.
yeah.
Okay, so 39% citing a desire for a career change or they're feeling undervalued at their current workplace. So, something along the lines of what you were saying, hygienists are now seeking more respectful work environments and realizing they can operate independently. And many are leaving traditional settings because they feel rushed and unable to provide proper oral hygiene instructions. Personally, I left because I didn't have enough time to do my job properly. Okay, so they're also Quebec, so it's all provinces up there, as you
Mhm.
know. Quebec is seeing a shortage of about 1,400 hygienists in the province and only about 300 additional licensed each year. So they are opening up hygiene programs. But if they're going into the mobile clinic setting, is the population being made aware that the hygienists are out there? You don't necessarily have to go to the office. And then I can't imagine the dentists are happy about that.
I'm sure not.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I have heard, and you've probably heard as well, is that so much of the Canadian population is right along the US Canada border. And the further north you go in the country, the less that there is. Now, Edmonton, Calgary, there are exceptions, of course. But to me, whenever I'm thinking about mobile dentistry, I'm also thinking about are these hygienists in Quebec going further north than Montreal and Quebec City? into some of these areas that aren't exactly reached. I know a hygienist in the state of Maine that's her whole goal is to go into parts of Maine that aren't normally covered, but she often has to work with the schools and they have to set aside time for her to
Mm,
be there and
okay.
announce it ahead of time and things like that. So I'm wondering if something like that is what they're doing, if that's the same model. It may not be, but just that's first thought that I went to.
Well, and so let's come back in the States for a little bit because there's always, I mean, and we're not going to get into it because it's a much bigger conversation, but the whole independent therapists, dental therapists, and independent hygiene, all of that is just always on the side, always being brought up. But the hygienists who I know who have opened up independent
Hmm.
practices,
Yeah.
I only know of one that's still operating. The other ones have all folded. And the reason being is that it's, first of all, it's expensive to be a practice owner. It's a business, insurance, malpractice, all of that.
Overhead. Yeah.
You are the overhead, you're the business owner. And even though you're bare bones, maybe you are the only employee, maybe somebody to help you, it's still overhead and it's still a lot of work. And
Mhm.
so, one thing that I remember one of them told me, and this is years ago, and I didn't really pay attention to it because it wasn't on my radar back then, but now it made a lot of sense because then I became a business owner. She said, I don't like all the risk. I did not realize like everything stops with me. It was so nice to be able to go into the office and the doctor was the one who took all the risk, or the hospital was the one who took all the risk. And I remember when I started my business thinking, I don't like this either. But, I also didn't have to deal with patients and be responsible for their care. Like that's a whole different level of risk that I would never take that on. I'm not that risky.
No, I agree completely. And I think there's a lot of things that, we don't get taught, going back to Schoolhouse Rock, we don't get taught about a lot of these things. We just think, wouldn't it be great to have my own business? And all of a sudden you
Yeah.
realize all the expense and liability and everything else that
Yeah.
goes with it. So I think that that's a big eye opener for a lot of people.
So hopefully the mobile clinics, what I do like about the mobile clinics is that they can get to people who aren't able to come to the dental office.
Sure.
You have a lot of nursing home residents, you have a lot of shut-ins, you have a lot of people, they just don't have a way around, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's a good thing, but the reimbursement can is different.
different.
But in the US, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I know of one doctor, Dr. Watson, I think his company is Mobile Care with a K. I'm going to have to look at that. I know I'm messing that up. Kwame Watson is his name. And he has a whole bunch of vans all through like Tennessee, Georgia, that
Yep.
area over there. And he does a good job, but he's got volume and he's got contracts like
Right.
with certain school systems. And he also participates with the state programs, Medicaids. So he has set himself up to keep the flow going. If you're an independent therapist, a hygienist starting out, guess what? You're also marketing. You have to wear that hat. So
Oh, yeah.
that's a totally different ball of wax, too. And I hope that they can make it work because I do think that they see people who can't normally be seen. But at the same time, man, that's a lot of work.
There's a lot going on there. And I will tell you, I'll put the link that main hygienist that we were discussing. I know that there was a film made and it was actually introduced into Sundance and other places like that about what it took for her to actually fulfill this dream of going out there and
Mhm.
helping these underprivileged areas in Maine. It's a really good documentary, and I highly recommend if you can watch it. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. But it was very
Wow.
eye opening to me because, as you said, I mean, she's a one woman show. I mean, her husband helps her out, getting things stacked in the van and everything else. But for her to make sure people know she's coming, to make sure that everything is filed for insurance, all that stuff, it's a
Hmm.
lot. Yeah.
And this is something that you don't necessarily have to worry about because you are a big, strong, manly man.
I'm
But
huge. Let's be honest.
yes, I mean, you are definitely a man's man. But if I were in my van by myself, and most hygienists are women, if I were in a van by myself going into areas and it's just me and maybe another woman helping me, like I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Maybe I need a big, strong, strapping man to drive the van around and stuff. But, I'm not trying to be the weak woman or anything, but let's be real. Like, I'm not trying to get like ambushed or anything like that. And not even crazy people. I'm talking about what if a patient's mad at you because they perceive you hurt them
Sure.
or you're not able to see them. I mean, we all know patients get a little bit ridiculous at times. So that's all the stuff that you don't have to worry about when you're actually sitting in somebody else's office and they're handling it. So,
Yeah.
you
And,
know,
you're driving around and not in the best weather, there's a lot of things to take into account as well. There are certain parts of Colorado I wouldn't want to drive around, in the winter time. I can guarantee you that. So
Yeah. Canada, not known for its sunny roads, right? Not
no, I
really.
checked the map and the equator's a little further south. So that's a problem.
I'm glad you did that before you ventured up
just
there.
throw it out there.
There goes Canada. We've lost Canada.
We lost it.
What else is new? So, all right. Well, I think we're done with our travels. It's time to park the Corvette in the garage.
Well, I'm glad I brought along the passport. Thanks for taking me across the border. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And we didn't spot any crazy veneer techs on the side of the road. So that's good. Illinois.
Good job,
Once
Illinois.
we crossed over, though, into Michigan, though, started seeing them everywhere. No, we lost Michigan.
We're just losing the whole upper, Hey.
Oh my goodness. All right. Okay, K-Dog. Anything else you want to add to this fantastic episode?
There is, because you and I are going to hang out together on December 12th. And I want to make sure people know all about us diving into the trends, the topics, and our favorite stories of the year on December 12th. And we're going to make sure to put in the show notes how to join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it will be the Chew on This educational webinar. We will try to restrain from, cracking all the jokes. One or two might pop up, but, right. We can't be completely serious. So.
No,
I don't know.
It's not cool.
That's not what they expect from us. Can you imagine if you all are listening to us and you're used to us being ridiculous, and then you show up for a webinar and we're so boring and just facts. You guys would never listen to us again. No. So,
yeah, we have to start saying, you can see here on slide 5 the difference, but then I would lose me too. I'm just telling you.
I know. Be like, Kevin, wake up, it's your turn. What? All right, dear listeners, we appreciate, and Griffin saying hello. I don't know if you can hear the bark. Yeah, so we do appreciate that you spend your time with us. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Chew on This. We hope you laughed and learned a little.
Check out the show notes for any links we mentioned, and don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast app. Feel free to drop us a comment on social media or by email if you have any suggestions for future topics.
We'll be back in about 2 weeks. See you then.